Miami Heat land Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks in a massive haul, a crazy deal to start the NBA offseason. I'm Coy Camiscioli, going to break down this trade for you for both sides. Kind of shocking. It's kind of escalated fast, obviously, throughout the regular season. There was some steam building up on Giannis potentially being traded. Then it kind of all got shut down. And here we are in the late June mark, hitting the late June mark, and he's gone from the Milwaukee Bucks. So I'm going to get through the full trade package. The Miami Heat receive Giannis and Bobby Portis. The Bucks will receive Tyler Hero, Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparis Yakochonis. Sorry, I didn't want to butcher that. The number 13th overall pick in the draft this year, an unprotected 2031 first round pick, unprotected 2033 first round pick, a 2030 first round pick swap, and a 2033 second round pick. So a crazy, crazy deal to the Milwaukee Bucks and for the Miami Heat. And honestly, my first reaction here, I was kind of surprised originally that the Bucks did not take the Jaylen Brown deal from Boston. I'll get into that in a second. I mean, most NBA fans, if you're listening to this, you probably know about that. The Celtics stood off for Jaylen Brown, I believe 2 second-round picks to the Milwaukee Bucks. And I was like thinking to myself, to the Milwaukee Bucks, and I was thinking to myself, I thought they should have done that. But there's a couple of things that kind of caught my eye later. Who knows about long-term commitment with Jaylen Brown to the Milwaukee Bucks? They're obviously hitting a rebuild phase if he's going to decide if he wants to leave or stay. And it's a big money commitment to Jaylen Brown. So they went kind of with the less money, more future assets involved offer. Tyler Hero's a good ball player. I think he's nothing too crazy. Same thing with Kel'el Ware and Jaime Jaquez. Some decent young players, and even in Yakochonis. But I just don't see really what's going to happen for the Milwaukee Bucks in the next 5 years if they can possibly become contenders again. I just don't see it happening. I think their team is completely depleted. And, I mean, that's kind of saying the obvious, but at the same time, it's not. I think some of these teams expect to be right back in the mix in a couple years. But especially with these first-round picks, I know they got the 13th overall pick in this year's draft. The next ones are 2031 and 2033. So we're looking at a long time away from the Milwaukee Bucks potentially being relevant. And again, for me, Hero, Ware, and Jaquez, they just don't really move the needle that much to change much of anything with that franchise. So that's my point of view for the Bucks. But if Giannis was going to play there, they had to get something. And I told you, I thought originally that they should have taken the Jaylen Brown deal. But now looking at it from a smarter perspective, I do think they made the right decision. They got some good young assets. They got some picks. And I agree. I don't think they could have made that money commitment. And who knows what Jaylen Brown would have been thinking. And now that's kind of a whole different story in itself with Jaylen Brown in Boston. That could brew some issues considering they were willing to trade him. I think Jaylen Brown's a hell of a player too. In terms of the Heat, though, this is a really interesting deal. I mentioned in a couple previous podcasts, Giannis Antetokounmpo is an anomaly of a basketball player. When he's healthy, he is top 3 in the league. There's really no doubt about it. He is one of the most dominant players in basketball. He was pretty much, I don't want to say the sole reason for that 2021 Bucks reign because Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, guys like that played a role. But I mean, 50 points in a finals game, in a closeout game, stuff like that is just absolutely legendary from Giannis Antetokounmpo. And he's still like that. He absolutely is still like that. The only concern for me with this trade is Miami still just doesn't seem that good to me. Like, they just don't seem like a contender, if I'm being honest. I mean, I guess anytime you get Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have somewhat of a contender of a team. But their starting lineup right now looks like Davion Mitchell, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins. So 3 solid players, nothing crazy. And then it's Giannis and Bam Adebayo. Listen, I know Bam had the 80-point-plus game this past season. I still don't think he's anything unbelievable. I'm just not quite sure if they're going to be able to get to the NBA Finals and win it with this roster, even though Giannis is a great basketball player. This is clearly a playoff team, but I don't even think Bam Adebayo is anything crazy. I think he's a great defender. I think he's a very good center. But after the 80-plus point game, I feel like their front office was saying that he's like untouchable, all this and that, and I just don't believe in any of that. I think that he should absolutely be touchable. and on the trade block if it means they could get a better player. But I don't know. They just the point guard and shooting the small forward, shooting guard, and point guard for me for the Miami Heat just not really doing it. Norman Powell's a good player. I like Norman Powell. I told you I like Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins. There's just more that they're going to need. And remember, that's just those guys on the starting lineup. Let's not get into their depth. But again, I like when teams make moves like this. You're trying to do something cool and trying to win a championship. So I'm not going to knock the Miami Heat for making this trade. And honestly, again, I told you I didn't think they gave up a ridiculous amount. I did think they gave up a respectable offer in order for the Milwaukee Bucks to pull the trigger. But if I was to give grades to this trade, I'd probably give the Miami Heat a B plus. And again, I think what's holding them back from being an A is just their roster construction right now. They definitely can't be done if they want to win. They're going to need to do something else. And I think if you're Miami, you're also hoping from a long-term commitment from Giannis to stay with the franchise. And if that's the case, then that could easily get moved up to an A. But as of now, I'm going to keep it at a B plus. If they make some corresponding moves to really make this team that good, I would definitely move that grade up. And for the Bucks, I would just give them a B. Nothing flashy for Milwaukee on this one. Again, I told you guys my thoughts. It's technically a pretty good haul, but at the same time, a lot of the assets are later assets, and some of the players, I've never been an insane Tyler Hero guy. I think he's good, nothing crazy. Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez, as I said, they're solid young players, but just the picks are later on, except for the number 13th overall pick in this draft. I don't know. Both teams. I'm honestly not very satisfied for both teams this trade. I know I didn't give them bad grades, but we'll see. We'll have to see. If it was Boston, things would have been a lot different. I really think so. I think that would have Boston would have probably won that trade if I had to guess. Even though Jaylen Brown is a great player, I think it would have been a good fit for the Celtics. But at the same time, Jaylen Brown is really good. I've gave him a lot of credit throughout the 76ers playoff series against them this past year. Hit some really tough shots, but that's not the trade that was taken, and it was a pretty valiant effort from Boston. I'm glad he doesn't go to Boston, even though I don't like Miami as much either. But yeah, guys, that's going to do it. I'll be back with more trade news when more stuff comes out.